What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, Roy Jones Jr., the legend, the icon, retired Hall of Famer. He weighs in on the rising welterweight superstar title contender in Jaron Boots Ennis, the Phenom, as I call him. 28 wins, no losses, no draw. 26 wins by way of knockout. Jaron Ennis is 24 years of age, 5'10" with a 74-inch arm reach. Jaron Ennis, he draws a lot of comparisons to that of Roy Jones Jr. And another guy, Roy Jones Jr. mentioned in another legend, retired Hall of Fame, iconic superstar boxer in Sugar Ray Leonard. So Roy Jones, he touches on the most highly anticipated, biggest fight in the sport of boxing between undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, ERROL the True Spence Jr., who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. ERROL Spence Jr. is 27 wins, no losses, no draws. 21 big wins by way of knockout, 31 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. He's going into a highly anticipated unification bout between WBA welterweight world champion, Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, who is 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 69-inch arm reach. That's scheduled to take place April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Okay, and he weighed in. The biggest fight is Errol Spence, though, versus himself and undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Bud Crawford. Okay, Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no losses, no draws, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. With that said, Roy Jones, he had this to say. He stated that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence have now waited too long. Okay, he stated that they allowed themselves, to be in a position where they allowed Jaron Boots Ennis to arrive on the scene, and now people want to see Jaron Boots Ennis versus one of those guys. And he reminds me a lot of myself, which leads me to believe that he could possibly beat both of those guys and upset the apple cart. Okay, so Roy Jones, he stated that now they put themselves in a position where, Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, they have to worry about Jaron Boots Ennis. The fight that everybody wants to see is them versus each other. But now Jaron Boots Ennis has arrived on the scene, and now people want to see Jaron Boots Ennis versus one of them, and he could definitely upset the apple cart. Okay, he's in a position where now people want to see Jaron Ennis, how he competes. And he says he's a mixture of myself, Sugar Ray Leonard, and a lot of other guys, and Terence Crawford. Okay, he says he got a bit of Terence Crawford in him. He got a bit of Sugar Ray Leonard in him. He got a bit of Errol Spence in him. He says he's a mixture of all the guys put together, and they have waited too long before they fought each other. Now, I believe, I personally believe that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford are going to fight next. I don't know who Terence Crawford personally is going to fight next. It looks like there's a plethora of fighters on the table for Terence Crawford, but I don't know who Terence Crawford is going to fight next. But I believe that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. After Errol Spence, I believe he's favored, and he should be favored to beat Yordenis Ugas April 16th. And I think that after that, Errol Spence is going to be looking, as he stated, to fight against Terence Crawford in a massive showdown. And I think that Terence Crawford could possibly face somebody this summer and then look to fight Errol Spence before the year is up. Okay. And so with that said, listen to what Roy Jones had to say.
Yeah. Do you see any similarities between Jaron, Ennis, and yourself?
So you heard what Roy Jones said. He said, I see a lot of similarities in myself, Sugar Ray Leonard, Terence Crawford. He went on to say Errol Spence. See a little Errol Spence, and a lot of people inside Jaron Boots Ennis, who's very big, he's very athletic, and Roy Jones, he attested to the fact that Jaron Ennis, he could switch from orthodox to southpaw. He could switch. Listen to what he had to say again.
Yourself?
So he said it's a beautiful thing to see and watch Jaron Boots Ennis compete. Okay, Jaron Boots Ennis, he has a fight coming up April 9th, a week before Errol Spence faces off against Yadena Sugas, and he's going to face against undefeated Custio Clayton, and it's an IBF title eliminator. So he'll be the mandatory for he's making himself the mandatory for Errol Spence, Yadena Sugas winner, which I don't believe he'll get the winner. Now, oddly enough, Terence Crawford, he was featured on a fight interview after his fight with two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Sean Porter. Terence Crawford, he was featured on Sean Porter's podcast, the Porterweight podcast, and Sean Porter, he asked Terence Crawford about a fight between himself and, Jaron Boots Ennis, and Terence Crawford, he walked around the question, okay? He said he saw a lot of Jaron Boots Ennis in himself, okay? He stated that a lot of people, when he was coming up, used to tell Terence Crawford, man, you got to keep an eye out on this guy, Jaron Boots Ennis. He reminds us a lot of you. He has the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox fluidly, and, there's a lot of similarities there. And Terence Crawford, he stated that he saw the similarities, and he stated that you never know what happens in boxing, okay? Terence Crawford is 34, Jaron Ennis is 24. So Terence Crawford is 10 years, Jaron Boots Ennis is elder, okay? And Terence Crawford, he stated that he has no interest in sticking around the sport of boxing for late in his 30s and in his 40s. So he's already going on 35 in September. Now, the fight everybody wants to see is him and Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence, he stated that he wants to go up to junior middleweight in 2 fights. So he wants to fight Yadena Sugas, pick up the belt, and he wants to become undisputed against Terence Crawford and pick up that belt, and then he wants to move on to junior middleweight. But now he went face-to-face with Jaron Boots Ennis, and he stated that he know he gonna have to see the young bull. He said, I know I'm gonna have to see the young bull. I know I'm gonna have to see you, but I believe it's gonna happen at 154, okay? It's ironic because you had, Sean Porter, who I had on my show, and Sean Porter, he stated that he would never fight Jaron Boots Ennis. He stated that unless he had all the belts and he had no choice, he was forced into fighting Jaron Boots Ennis, and even at that point, he may think about vacating because Jaron Boots Ennis reminds him a lot of Roy Jones Jr., Roy Jones 2.0. It's ironic because lately Sean Porter, he changed his stance on Jaron Ennis, and he said that Jaron Ennis is overrated, okay? And Jaron Ennis called him out, said, if I'm overrated, then come out of retirement and let's fight, okay? Sean Porter, he stated that, he's comfortably in retirement and promoting his brand and things of that nature. So he didn't accept the challenge, clearly, okay? And so you get a lot of people suddenly, because Jaron Boots Ennis has garnered a lot of attention, and Jaron Boots Ennis has, got a lot of the fans' attention, and, people are putting him on the pedestal now, and they believe that he's the goods. You got a lot of detractors for Jaron Boots Ennis, okay? But those are high regards. Those are high praises. I always say this. Jaron Boots Ennis reminds me of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. It's like they had a kid. I liken it to the movie The Underworld, when you had the Lycans and you had the vampires, and, then they had, the mixture, the hybrid, where he was a mixture of both, and they couldn't stop him, right? He had all of their strength and none of their weaknesses, right? And Jaron Ennis, he has everything that Errol Spence brings to the table: size, strength, southpaw stance, power. And then he has the ability to do what Terence Crawford does. He has the quickness, the foot speed, and the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox fluidly, okay? And so I believe for sure Terence Crawford is starting to get on the long in the tooth, right? And he's not as effective as he once was in the orthodox stance, okay? In the orthodox stance, Terence Crawford was just as effective and slick and elusive as he was in the southpaw stance. But as of late, he hasn't shown that. In the orthodox stance, Terence Crawford has shown a lot of vulnerabilities, okay? ERROL Spence, again, he has suffered a lot of injuries. He suffered that horrific car accident just 12 days after unifying the titles September 28th against Shawn Porter. And October 10th, he suffered a horrific car accident. He was out the ring for 14 months. He came back December 5th. He fought two-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer, oddly enough, who's from Philadelphia, and Danny Garcia. He outclassed Danny Garcia, but then he suffered a broken detached retina ahead of his highly anticipated showdown with legendary 8th-division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. So Roy Jones is saying that we don't know how ERROL Spence is going to come back physically. We'll see against Yordenis Ugas. But Roy Jones has him number 3, and I agree. There's a lot of boxing pundits, media, who believe he's the number 3 welterweight. And the only reason you have him number 3 is because ERROL Spence and Terence Crawford are undefeated and proven, okay? So I believe that Terence Crawford and ERROL Spence are going to fight next. I believe the winner is going to vacate the belts and move up. Terence Crawford has expressed now interest that he has interest in moving up to junior middleweight as well. So I believe that they'll vacate, and I believe it is going to be between Jaron Boots Ennis and undefeated rising Mexican superstar title contender Virgil Ortiz Jr., who is 18 wins, no loss and no draw, 18 wins by way of knockout. 24 years of age, 5'10", with a 70-inch arm reach. He has a fight coming up March 19th against Michael McKinson, who's undefeated UK star boxer, 21 wins, no loss and no draw, 2 draws, no loss and no draws, and 2 wins by way of knockout. So he's not a major player, but he's number 3 in the WBO ranking system, and that they'll be fighting March 19th. I expect Virgil Ortiz to win that fight. And then I expect it to come down to Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz as to who becomes the undisputed champion at welterweight, if ever, okay, because the politics in the sport of boxing. You also have guys like Rashidi Ellis there, you know, who's a major player, but Rashidi Ellis has been inactive, Speedy Rashidi Ellis, and nobody knows what's the future hold for him. But that's high praise from Roy Jones, and he says that Terence Crawford and ERROL Spence may have made a mistake, because if one of them end up fighting Jaron Ennis first, and he puts himself in position to fight one of them first before they get the opportunity to fight each other, he's going to upset the apple cart. He's going to destroy the big fight that everybody wants to see. And then it's going to be him versus the person that he didn't fight and didn't beat. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share the videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.